Hi, thanks so much for joining us. I am Carrie Y. Hepburn Brown. I serve as the network weaver and relationship manager for Open Inc. It's my pleasure to be here with my colleague, Frances Wash, who will introduce herself in just a second, to give you an update on what's happening with the Open Blueprint for Structural Improvement, also known as a network approach to rebuild the national oral health system. Frances, you want to say hi?
Hi, everybody. My name is Frances, as many of you know, and I appreciate so much your time and your willingness to be here.
So today, Frances and I are going to give you not an overview of where we've been, but an overview of what's to come. And so it's my pleasure to remind you of this quote that we often share, which is change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change we seek. And as you know, hopefully by now, we've undergone a process to better understand the U.S. Oral health system, how it operates, with the intent to really figure out where are the best places for us to apply some pressure, also known as leverage, to change things. So we are the change that we've been looking for, and I want to fill you in on how we've gone about doing that and where we are now. So, oops, sorry there. So we were really attempting, as I mentioned, to alter the American healthcare system, primarily the interaction of oral health as an impetus and important piece of overall health, but also just to help folks understand how important oral health really is. We know and understand that networks can provide and promote collective action, provided that two things happen. One, that everyone shares the same vision and values, and certainly here with Open, we have that. And two, everybody understands their role in the process of change. And so today's sort of presentation for you is an opportunity to help you understand how we envision your role as a network member being part of this new strategic plan. So, if you want to change the world, how do you go about doing it? Certainly, we've done some of these amazing things, building a network, and we continue to do so to expand and promote the network. And thank you for your ambassadorship and your champion of that. As I mentioned, we spent the majority of last year mapping the US oral health system. That led us to identify the areas of highest leverage, places where we could apply some pressure in the system to make some change. Um, we are calling those leverage areas, also levers. And then we designed strategies to apply leverage in those areas. So we have 5 levers and 4 leverage areas in 4 strategies per lever. And Frances will tell you a little bit more about that. That happened during Open Academy as well as Open Nationals last year, which were both virtual events. So most recently, we just had our 2021 Open Academy, which also was held virtually. And we were able to get to the next level of development of our action plan, which was specific action steps. So we brought together all our network members, and thank you for those of you who were able to participate, to really think about, now that we've got these levers and these specific strategies, how do we make things happen? And you all provided great insight and lots of creativity. And we ended up with about 120 to 120 to 150 action steps per lever. So we're excited, and we now need to do something with that. So we're hoping to invite you into a process to really refine, organize, and sort through the action steps. And Frances will tell you a little bit more about that. Once we do that, we'll also be working on building our shared measurement system, really packaging our overall strategic plan, and then developing an implementation structure. So this process will become our new sort of collective action work and will replace what we had been referring to as the Oral Health 2020 goals and targets. All right, Frances, over to you.
Thank you, Carrie Y. So as you recall, we had some oral health 2020 goals and targets, which we spent a great deal of time really building out. And it's not to say that we aren't taking that with us. We are definitely bringing along the knowledge, the wisdom, every bit of learning that we've done. But as we move along, next slide, please, you'll see those destinations are in our rear view as we are now rapidly approaching 2022. And we have this brand new open blueprint for structural improvement. So as Carrie Y mentioned, there are 5 levers. The first is to amplify consumer voices. The second is to advance oral health policy, integrate dental and medical, emphasize prevention, and bringing care to the people. And so for each of the 5 levers, we also have 4 strategic interventions. So you may remember this map, and I know there's a lot of text. At some point, if you have time, I would really encourage you to go through it because there's some great content that came over from our national meeting last year in 2020. And so each of those came from network members and then were vetted based on, is this going to be impactful? Is this something that we think, is actually something we can do? Is it feasible? Would it be sustainable if this were to be a long-term action? And so with all of those kind of rankings, we selected which would come along with us and which we thought we were actually going to be able to do. And so next slide, please. After we came up with all of those strategic interventions, we then brought to you the jam boards, if you remember, at Open Academy this past June. And with May or June, I don't remember actually. But so if you recall, we had jam boards and everybody dropped in whatever action steps they could think of, right? So the lever here was to integrate dental and medical, and then we're trying to, identify different opportunities where we might be able to do so. So then members came together and they jammed hard and came up with all the different things that you see here. And there are so many more pages and sheets of all the different action steps. If you recall, we were asking people to come up with what would work at a community level, at a state level, at a national level, or stuff that anyone could take part in. So next slide, please. So what do we do now? What we need to do is to synthesize, refine, socialize, which is a very important step to make sure other people know what we're talking about and it makes sense, not just to us, which I think sometimes we do suffer a bit from bringing it in too close and then not realizing that, oh wait, we need to make sure this makes sense. And then we'll finalize those brainstormed action steps. We'll develop metrics that we're going to be able to measure our progress as we move along. And then we'll promote the final blueprint and recruit members to take action. So that will take place this October at our next national meeting, at which point we will launch the implementation of the blueprint. The way that we see that happening is to have teams for each of the levers. They will have some designated leads, people that are able to coordinate and provide that leadership. We'll also take those final metrics, whatever the measurement that we come up with. And so we'll have a dashboard that's publicly displayed so that we'll be able to track our progress as we move along. And I think I'm turning it over to Carrie Y.
Thanks, Francis. That was awesome for helping us bring everybody up to speed. So this may look a little familiar to you. This is our traditional sort of hub, this depiction of what a network is all about. And so hopefully some of these terms look familiar to you, but just in case they don't, oops, I will go over a few. So at the end of all of this, where will we be? We will have transitioned to a multi-hub action network that has increasingly large-scale impact on the world, and certainly the US, and we hope even the world. So just a couple of things to remind you of. Hubs are traditionally sort of the center holding force, if you think about it, the places in which networks are organized around. So for those of you who've been around the network for a while, you remember that our primary hub was the CareQuest Institute, formerly known as DentaQuest Institute, as they started pulling together oral health stakeholders over 10 years ago. Within the hub, individual organizations and individual players are connected in nodes. And so you'll see this here little depiction. It's this little dot. We know that our network is full of nodes, full of people who are connecting. And the link really represents the ties between our network members. So some of the network members that you are know and are closer to have closer ties, but even some of those that you may just recognize their name, although you may consider those to be weak ties, we know from social network theory that both the strong and the weak ties matter in creating change. The other part, so what we'll transitioning to is a multi-hub sort of organization where there'll be lots of different places that'll be holding parts of the network together, which is to say, we continue to have a dispersed leadership, and that no one person sort of represents the network, but that collectively we all are spokespeople and champions for the work. The other key piece about this is that we really want to intentionally describe ourselves as an action network, which we have been all along, but we've sort of evolved from what the traditional network models are. The three different types. One is a connectivity model, which really is about connecting people. Think of like a trade association or a professional group, where people are sort of sharing information and getting to know each other. The next type of network is an alignment type, and that's where there is this agreement of shared values and maybe some goals, in operation in the same direction. So think of maybe a fraternity or sorority, or even a civil service organization. But the action network, also known as protection network, is where collective action is actually happening. That everyone in the network is not only connected and aligned, but they are committed to working in a coordinated effort. And so the Open Blueprint, which is our shortcut name for the Open Blueprint for Structure Improvement, is really our collective work, our collective action for the next 5 years in a written form. How will we use the blueprint? Well, we've already started talking a little bit about what we'll do. We'll coordinate and facilitate collective action. That's the main thing. It really is our new map. It's our blueprint, if you will. So think about the idea of a blueprint. It's the foundation. It's how things get built. It's where we're starting from. And when we think about it, the reason that this analogy seemed to be so appropriate is because we really are focused on building or rebuilding, depending on your perspective, the oral health system. We also want to use the Open Blueprint to apply for grant funding, to support implementation of the steps, all of the amazing ideas and innovations that you've already come up with, and some that we think we still want to see happen. It'll help us measure our shared progress on goals to demonstrate our impact. And just a quick note here, we're still asking for your input to help evaluate our Oral Health 2020 goals, so that we can wrap that up. It'll also help in the designing of a learning agenda that will help to build the capacity of network members. So as we start to get involved in each one of the specific levers, what are the specific sorts of theories or additional learning that you need to really be able to amplify consumer voice, if you will, or emphasize prevention? Who are the partners that you should, key players and the partners that we should be connected to? We want to help you find where you fit in the work. And again, as we've already said, this is not about eliminating the work that was done as part of the Oral Health 2020 goals. It's really our way of reorganizing and addressing the work, as we've identified that these are really the key places that are going to help us make the impact that we want to see. The blueprint will also help us strengthen the connections among network members, and increase the value of participation in the network. We know that sometimes it's hard to communicate the benefit of being a network member, and there are all sorts of maybe intangible things that you benefit from, connections and just hearing about lessons learned and best practices. But we believe that the blueprint will help you to have a very tangible way of describing what you get from participating in the network. And then finally, we also think and know that the blueprint will be used to help inform Open's policy agenda. So as you can see, it's a big deal, and that's the reason that we're inviting you into this next phase of the process. So we showed you a couple slides back about what the Jamboards look like. And remember, the Jamboard is just really for those of you who weren't involved at Academy, it's basically a collaborative technology-based, web-based whiteboard where you can in real time share your thoughts and ideas. So as I mentioned, we have quite a lot, somewhere between 120 and 150 action steps for each of the levers within those four strategic areas. And Francis has already identified that our next step in the process is to really refine that list, to start to prioritize and identify which of those action steps that have been suggested are our best chance to move forward. Here's where we want your help. We have scheduled and are scheduling workshop sessions for each within each of the lever areas. And so what you'll see are two 90-minute sessions for each lever. And again, I'll remind you of what they are. They'll happen each week. We invite you to participate as many of these sessions as you can. Please know that if you can't attend the first one, you can still attend the second one, because the process will include us really just going through the action steps within each one of our strategic interventions for each of the levers to narrow them down and prioritize. And we want your input and help to do that. So you'll see that we're starting this work the middle of September, and there are two sessions per week. So the first week, we'll be talking about amplify consumer voices and helping to prioritize and identify key strategies there. We'll move forward to advance oral health policy. Finally, we'll move to integrate dental and medical, and that's intentional that we put dental first. Then we'll go to emphasize prevention, and we'll wrap it up with bring care to people. And at the end of all of that, what we will have is an updated strategy that we'll be presenting and working through when we see each other at National. So I hope you've got those dates already marked on your calendar, October 20th through the 22nd. We are doing a hybrid event, which means that you can join us in person in St. Louis, Missouri, or virtually as well. So as we wrap this up, we'll put all of this in writing and hope that you'll join us. There won't be any you won't need to RSVP in advance. However, we'd love to know if you're interested. You can simply send an email to Francis or I or to the info account once you see this post. But just a reminder of what we believe in the network, and that is, if you want to go quickly, if you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So while we probably could have taken this process and just internally refine the steps, we think it's vitally important that we have your input and your support, and actually that you as network members drive this work. And so we're hoping to go far together. Look forward to seeing you next month in September, depending on when you're viewing this. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.